the northeastern border of India lies the Kingdom of Nepal. Dividing Nepal from Tibet, the Himalayas, the highest mountains in the world. Under the Himalayas, in the high villages of Khumbu, live a people called Sherpas. The village of Tami, 12,500 feet up in the Himalayas. The first man to stand on the top of Everest, Sherpa Tenzing, came from this place. This film is about three brothers from Tami. They've chosen three very different lives, but the choices they made tell a good deal about what being a Sherpa means and how rapidly it's changing. Most of all, this film is about a tension that runs through Sherpa life, a kind of separateness which holds people apart. But that separateness also lies behind the self-reliance which has taken Sherpas to the top of the highest mountains on Earth. This is how the outside world usually sees Sherpas, carrying big loads up big mountains. On Annapurna and Kanchenjunga, on Makalu, and most memorably on Everest, the world's climbers have relied on Sherpas. These people are on their way up to Tami village, carrying provisions and equipment for the unit making this film. In the group are three brothers from Tami. Two of them, scattered by the lives they chose, haven't seen the village for years. Mingma is the leader of the group. His job is as a Sirdar, the head Sherpa on expeditions.
Ngarelam zone na mangaranggo mangare tingna tiki sharadwa taman de kem japsin lemono de kem de lemono kem jangma shisin gum nubla ruhoni gangbo rugi kuni dibe tamami gangbo chopsin shin dibe.
Mingma's two brothers have chosen more traditional Sherpa lives. Dorji is a Buddhist monk.
Tadwur nol ala gam mishi tadwur kondo da gabu to pangoi kondo arti to jurchu yure pang wa yuluma tirmogi to de la temo kondo ban nyama pang chetang bang thamo kang bu thamo rima chani bang do gi ti ko da ma college da ma thamo kang bu ti bu thate thamo no sang gi thamo sang ge thamo.
The third brother is Powa Tenzing. He's a farmer, and for him, Tami is still home.
Kumpula mi ala Mozambique, tede zumbi tikwe zumzinang ala mangu Mozambique. Tamat yamula nama sergino tamate lawe. Dia ora kang ba database singala database kang ba teji. Database kang ba laga chirup. Database ten doji.
There are about 20,000 Sherpas in Nepal. The Sherpas migrated here from Tibet about 450 years ago, and contacts with Tibet in trade and religion have always been important. Today, for the men and women in villages like Tami, farming and yak herding must provide a basic living. Each family can produce what it needs to survive, so there's no need for cooperation in harvesting the only crop, potatoes. You can see the patterns of Sherpa life in the patterns of the village itself. Each family's house stands separated from the next. The boundaries of each family's fields are precisely defined. All property is privately owned, and there are no leaders here with power over other people's lives. Every family keeps to itself and sorts out its own survival. But the price they pay for their separateness is often a lack of cooperation and community. November is the dead time of the year in the fields. Like everyone else in Tami now, Poa Tensing's daily worry is fuel, to cook and to keep warm. Fuel means precious dry wood, and that means more load carrying. The nearest suitable trees are more than 2 hard hours away, 14,000 feet up on the side of a mountain. For Poa Tensing and his wife Aikami, it means a start not long after sunrise.
Lojigla Tasambala Gumbu Shing TV Salu Rui Amadui Rongla Dui Pela Dui Pela Dui Tama Ti Aru Dawa Tangbu Shersima Miyuk Kambakuni Dui Kambakoni was Mantibula Tibula Laga Me Kajavi Tito the Dui Tama Trijula Dawa New Shatma Shingila Chui Re Deu Tang Chachuru Re Deu Dawa Newa Sumbasak Shingila Chui.
From spring until the summer rains, Sherpa farmers like Poa Tensing work in their fields and hope for a bit of trading.
Kangdawa Dimba Jeba Guasak Shingila Rico Tangap Lakashi Tama Tawatama Shing TV Tama Shing Tu Ringa Job the Yapi Mapping Pelapi Yambulapi Drain Chief Miss Logical to the Laka to the Missimichi.
A 1,000 feet downhill and then 3,000 feet up again, clinging to a near vertical mountainside, the trees Poa Tensing and Aikami are looking for, trees dry enough to burn easily. Timber grows only very slowly at this height, and after centuries of wood gathering, there's a desperate shortage of trees in Khumbu. Now, controls on woodcutting are strict, and Sherpas like Poa Tensing have to work hard if they're to keep warm. Now the long haul back to Tami, this time each with more than 100 weight of wood on their backs. For poor Tenzing and his wife, it's a routine day. They expect to make this trip 5 times a week, every week, at this time of year. Six and a half hours after leaving Tami, Poor Tenzing and I Kami are home. The next day, I Kami went back for more wood. The reincarnate Lama of Tami Monastery. When he was 2, he was discovered to be the reincarnation of the previous Lama. Since then, he has been the Rinpoche, the Precious One. On a mountainside above Tami village is the Lama's monastery. Poor Tenzing's brother Dorji is on his way to visit the Lama. For the last 2 years, Dorji's been living and studying at a new monastery in Kathmandu. Buddhism teaches that it's the job of every individual to seek his separate salvation. No one can save another. Whether you're a monk like Dorji, or a farmer like Poor Tenzing, or a Sirdar like Mingma, daily life is partly a preparation for reincarnation. By gaining merit and avoiding sin, you ensure for yourself a good life next time. It's no accident that the Tami monastery stands apart on the hillside. Monks like Dorji have withdrawn from village life to pursue their own salvation, separated from worldly concerns. For most people, the point of making merit is to get a good rebirth. But for monks, the aim is to escape the cycle of death and rebirth altogether. Only 2 or 3 Sherpas in every 100 become monks. Boys can be sent to begin a religious life as young as 6. For most, it's expected to be a lifelong commitment. For Sherpa parents, to have a son who's a monk is a powerful source of merit.
뭐 저 맞지는 뭐 힘도 야주 마주 꿀리주 소냐주 나 같이 군지 대도가 되면 초자대 뭐 나가버리면시 포트로 그럼 다시 뭐 이끌고
A healing ritual in the Tami monastery. The ritual has been commissioned by Dorji's father, Ausumi. Ausumi hopes it will help to cure his persistent nosebleeds. For a whole day, these monks will read the sacred books exclusively for Ausumi. In return, he will pay them and feed them. The reading will create merit which should promote Ausumi's cure. It's taken him a year to save up for this. The monks would need a month to read the 108 holy books right through, but Ausumi can only afford a single day. So the monks read a few pages of each book and then pass on to the next. Since the books are truth, it's only necessary to give them an airing. And for everyone, it's a business-like occasion. Ausumi doesn't even need to be here for most of the time. He gains merit from supporting the monks while he's busy in the monastery kitchen preparing their food. Dorji said his father's illness was the result of sin in a previous life, but it might be wiped out by this ritual. In avoiding sin themselves and pursuing a good rebirth, Sherpa monks must renounce marriage and so avoid the trap of worldly concerns and obligations. For a monk to break the vow of celibacy is to destroy his chance of salvation. There'll be a wedding in this house the day after tomorrow. Today, as well as preparing huge quantities of chang, the Sherpa beer, there are some vital practical details to be sorted out. Although there is a monk here to read sacred text, his presence is a formality, and he'll play no part in the wedding. For above all, Sherpa weddings are about property and possessions. The bride is still living here in her parents' house, but she's had an open relationship with the groom for the past 4 years, and they've already had one child. Sherpa marriage is a lengthy business and can take years to complete. The main reason for the delay is that marriage means inheritance. As well as losing a working member of the family, the bride's parents must provide an extensive dowry. Her husband will inherit a house, fields, and animals. It all means that there's no room for sentiment in recording the details.
je doji gyoji laji doni ino chuta dawa jubi che sum nine kenzen chiktu punye tenza ne shamla chilok chuna pumi nor sur kurgyutang pumi norji katang thangbola ser tola chila gor gyatang gor nija jaju thamba gor nija jaju thamba sang chila gor chuju thamba lure retu chila gyatang shipju
nhưng thì tấp chọc tôi trên thì tấp chọc đi tè thôi.
For the bride's mother, the packing of her daughter's dowry is just the beginning. The next few days will mean the exhausting and expensive entertainment of more than 100 guests. For the bride herself, the wedding means lots more work. For the village of Tami, a wedding is one of the very few occasions when the separateness of families and individuals is bridged, and just for a few days, there's a sense of community. After the days of preparation, it's the morning of the wedding. The groom's procession comes over the ridge from his village. Shielded by an umbrella to ward off evil spirits, a member of the groom's party blesses the beer, offering some to the gods. Chang has a crucial part in every Sherpa social occasion. It creates an atmosphere where people feel able to get together. In the middle of all the celebrating, the groom stands quiet and almost unnoticed. His bride is still working in the house. They're not the center of attention. The wedding is really about inheritance and about bringing together Sherpa families who spend most of their lives absorbed in their own affairs. In the chaotic gloom of the house, the actual ceremony is over in a moment. Now the village can get on with the really enjoyable part of the celebrations, an all-night round of dance parties with yet more Chang. The next day, the newly married couple are ready to leave for the groom's village.
Kalau narin gitu masa lu gak sih lu gak makai. Ini lah. Như giá đang trên rồi, như cái tôi cứ lấy cho cái.
The groom's relatives celebrate gaining a new member of their family. Some of the bride's relatives try to capture one of the groom's party to pay a symbolic ransom for the departing bride. But the real meaning of this event is in those loads on the girls' backs. The procession celebrates the creation of another separate family unit, heading off with their own property to their own house. Eight years ago, this was a quiet Sherpa village called Lukla. Today, thousands of tourists from all over the world fly into Lukla every year to begin their trekking holidays in the Everest area. For Sherpas who remain in Khumbu, the fact of tourism means rapid change. For Mingma, looking after his father's animals 12 years ago, it meant a new life.
Tamanagdo shisimana papa mi lapgino dungino tamasemla garang ma chung tama mido sab gi lagala fini manjele mo khongino zutale mo khongino gari dogino redo dogino tama chase ra la sung ngang dugani kondu ni singale ngang dugani sab gi lafilo she singale mido sab la shila sinam sase sem thanga la sung mido sab gi manjali mo khon garita reto tane dama dressing nga sase sem thanga la sung ngang dugani option sing gale no sung dama ma jura lesen pab ala lap nakto shi mo khoi du nak shi chini sisi khangsen sirul ma sem te dugwala sung sem dugwala so na ma yambula trukroni
Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. Tami and Khumbu are more than 100 miles away, but for thousands of Sherpas like Mingma, Kathmandu has become home. This is where the tourists arrive and where the jobs are to be found. Mingma moved down from Tami to live in Kathmandu with his family 10 years ago. Now, though he's away for much of the year on treks and climbing expeditions, his home is here, on the ground floor of a house in the Sherpa district of the city. Mingma's wife, Pasang Lamu, serves lunch for 20. For some years now, she's made this front room available to Sherpas from Tami who are in Kathmandu looking for work. Pasang Lamu makes a bit of money selling beer to her guests. Most of the Tami Sherpas staying here today are just back from a successful ascent of Manaslu. It's Saturday, so Mingma's 5 children are at home from school. The school's just one reason why Mingma and his wife prefer to live in Kathmandu. Their son Angsoltim is another. Angsoltim came to Kathmandu with his parents when he was a baby. Within months, he caught polio. It left him unable to walk without crutches, an impossible handicap on the steep tracks of Tami.
Kumbula kalewe kurugogi shingila ala chigoji yembula la chimangana yembula la angal ni tu la kobo wesno la kobo wesno ngi ansundim la chapje na sandbon le sumien chai mata.
4 years ago, Pasang Lamu had another family tragedy. Her father was killed on a mountaineering expedition.
Papa kare juksum zagaloi kare juksum jene lasla amulabzala Germany mala talagem nishisun thangba gomala experience laga ala me kumbula shingi laga kiwi pela dwi la jawi hasbele experience laga la wa Sherpa kambu experience laga ki experience laga kaleno Sherpa laga yamba tanga ngob laga mindu experience laga ma bisi tanga miangno 아줌마 나가라가서 앙아 강부 아줌마 알아가치 텐다랑we 텐다랑나 바바 알아스위 텐다랑we 가we 아줌마 가르라간세 꾸림 알아키 아줌마 나가 tikbeji jiwalanga na ta lemono galnisisi la kala gole fela pablangina mala anga ala we anga sogogina kalewe.
The mountains of Khumbu present their own problems for Mingma. It isn't just a matter of avalanches and crevasses. Mingma is an experienced high-altitude climber who's already led a number of successful international expeditions. But in some ways, the personal problems of trying to cope with the sensitivities of his fellow Sherpas are even more daunting for a Sirdar like Mingma. On Everest, those problems would be especially severe.
Everest is drawing Gano, Gano, Conrad of the Everest Leopard and Gano, but Sherry Patti Sherado, Maremi, Moremo, Shumi, Chasamana, Caleno, Chilachigi, Mositu Caleno. Gambla Laga, Chota, Tirilla Laga, Chota, Mambo, Jangala, Nansino, Rangala, Bin, Rangala, Madin, yes, in same Nagachino. Tamanda Ora Mila Tamujo man, Mositu man can Caleno.
For traditional Sherpa farmers, like Mingma's brother Poa Tensing, life inside the family household seems unchanged. But there are profound changes here in Tami as well. This used to be the time of year when many Sherpas like Poa Tensing would travel to Tibet to trade. Since the Chinese occupation of Tibet, things have been very different. Now, trading is strictly controlled, and young men have been forced to take up tourist work to make a living. The dwindling trade with Tibet has become an old man's affair. These yaks belong to Poa Tensing's father, Ao Sumi. Tomorrow, they'll be carrying his goods to Tibet for trading. This evening, the yaks have been rounded up by a fourth brother, Hlakpa. Like a considerable number of Sherpas who suffer from a serious iodine shortage in the Khumbu water, Hlakpa was born retarded. He has remained at home with his parents all his life, helping his father with the yaks. The journey to Tibet up over the 19,000-foot Nang Pala Pass will take 6 days. Asumi is 65 years old and his family have gathered to see him off. His wife is here with a grandchild. As our Sumi follows his yaks towards Tibet, he scatters rice for the gods as a protection for his journey. It's an image of Sherpa life that hasn't changed in hundreds of years. But in our Sumi's own village, a source of real change is impossible to ignore. The Tami School was one of half a dozen schools for Sherpa children, founded by Sir Edmund Hillary in the early 60s. The song is the Nepalese national anthem, and the children are singing it in the Nepali language. In the last few years, the Hillary schools have been taken over by the Nepalese government, and Sherpas complain that standards have fallen. But schools like this have produced some of the most able students in the whole country. And inevitably, educated Sherpas have left the villages of Khumbu in search of better opportunities. None of the three brothers was young enough to attend this school, but Mingma has learned the value of education the hard way, teaching himself to read and write and to speak foreign languages, and he's determined that all his children should get an education.
Aru thami namala didegi mondretegi thanda simeshino pedatik bindigi tamangara nasala terila chok dai gi lemo lamju no gino sila sisi ngarana igilu ma chungbi ngara igi meshu kale no tama igi ma shesi dupono tila gi no ngaram chani pasul sebla ga chani dama pesadola igi lemo lam nor mesino igi lemo lamju no gino.
But Mingma is aware that a traditional Sherpa option does still exist for his son, religion.
Trawachase phangindang chasil lemu inza tara trawachilla thasam pala samen lemu medi kaleno chila sisin trawachase ma trawila gala chongjo myangbi tama shingila ga kiru myangbi sebla gala kulila dro myangbi artalila gala dro myangbi tama tugyasama tangaung sa me tangaung sa mesima dama thasam gi mi gi bulwa myano bulwa masum so sap kale no dama chho jasin tanga myang tanga shamsin chho myang jane kale no.
For the monks in Tami Monastery, the patterns of life seem largely unchanged. But they have lost their previous monopoly on Sherpa education. Nevertheless, partly due to its comparative isolation from the tourist tracks, Tami Monastery remains one of the most thriving in Khumbu. Today, the monks are beginning a major ritual, Dorsem, 5 days of text reading, music and ceremony for the spiritual purity of the monks. The climax of the Dorsem ritual will be a rare coming together of monastery and village. After 5 days of ritual in the monastery, the final afternoon of Dorsem has arrived. For the villagers, this is marvellous spectacle. But they're simply onlookers as the monks complete their own purification. First, the music attracts the attention of the gods. Then, by burning the symbols of Sherpa life, food and cloth and wood, the monks seek the protection of the gods. In the process, the monks become near gods themselves. Inside the monastery, the climax of Dorsem has arrived. This is the Sewong, which means life power. Now the monks move beyond their concern for their own salvation. After the days of purification, they're empowered to hand out long life to everyone who has come here. For Sherpas who are still living a traditional life like Poa Tensing, this is a familiar landmark in the year. For his brother Mingma, it may be years before he stands here again. A picnic in the botanical gardens, Kathmandu, for Mingma and his family. Mingma's children are already much further from Khumbu than their parents. Only 2 of them have ever seen Tami. None of the children speaks the Sherpa language.
Lumba tikpe laduma lapsha namba mamunga samanam kalagino mila.
Ni bizarla sheri lapsha. Madru lewai. Sheri lapsha tolse tingla sharwa sheri mingra miambe. Sharwa sheri lapsha mesi Nepali tan sharwa la chadang mi chikbi. Sheri lapsha tolse aru tingla sharwa sheri ming miambe.
Sheremi metuga. Sheroside ma khan Sheroside khan ma kudi yu sab yi mi zaman girpinde no.
Shara ajung lebna. Shara kuli yun sasna shara kun mi kiwi zna malawe Kurukuni kala yemsa wasna mingle mawe. Share lapsha. Torsin share ming donde.